but everyone here today has a mother, a sister, a friend, and a daughter. So all of us should have an interest in protecting the ones that we love. The thought of half of my 8 granddaughters being a victim of domestic violence in their lifetime and being failed by the state of Oklahoma, like many of us have, is not acceptable. And as you see, it gets me emotional thinking about it. Another House Bill 3287 regarding domestic violence and human trafficking is going to require health care facilities to post signage and provide protocols about domestic violence and human trafficking. This brings us to our next speaker, Tara Curran, who has many years' experience in the healthcare field. She first began her advocacy in 2009 when the death of her younger cousin took place at the hands of her abuser. And on March 11th, 2022, Tara was shot 8 times by her ex-boyfriend in the parking garage of Tegris Hospital. Tara hopes to continue bringing awareness to the African American community about domestic violence in the hopes to break the silence and the stigma that is attached to it.
The text that was read at trial. Just in case, car will be at Baptist, 3rd floor, with the keys under the seat. And if I don't return, get my truck to my sister's house. This is the text that was sent at 4:06, just 8 minutes before the first 911 call was received at 4:14. His cell phone records indicated that he had been researching a little over a week before the shooting. I left work at 4 p.m. as usual, and he arrived in the parking garage at 3:52. I exited the elevator between 4:10 and 4:11, and the video showed him leaving at 4:14. It took only 3 minutes to change my life forever. My story began about 6 months after my boyfriend and I of 22 years had broken up. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was enjoying life. I met him, and at first I admit I wasn't interested. Then we began talking, and I made a fatal mistake. I gave him the blueprint of my life. I told him about the flaws in my past relationship and what I wanted should I get in another. This is when he sent his representative. They gave me everything I wanted in the world. The relationship progressed quickly. I had never been treated like this. Showering me with gifts, going on trips out of town, and going out to eat regularly. I was spoiled and not the only recipient of his generosity. He even showered my mother with gifts. You see, I told him that I was an only child, and my mother was the most supportive person in my world after having lost my father 21 years ago. He knew that if he treated her well, that it would impress me. Of course, I looked him up on the OSC, especially the domestic violence charges. And I did see one, and it was 10 years ago that he admitted to. You can only keep up a facade for so long. Eventually, your representative gets tired, and the real person shows up. There was never any physical violence, but the red flags were there. The slick comments, the emotional games, and subtle put downs. It would really start to be more obvious about a year in when began doing things out of spite. The one that really stands out in my mind is when he left one night and didn't come back until the next day. His response, I wish I could have seen your face when I didn't come back. His behavior was erratic, and he always had a firearm. I knew I couldn't live like this. And it wasn't just about me. I had to think of my mother. You would hear me mention her often. She is the absolute driving force. He would flip on a dime. So when he got angry and knocked the skillet of hot grease over, I knew that was it for me. He left and I called the police. The next morning, I was preparing to file a VPO and noticed my wallet was missing. I looked everywhere before calling him. At this point, he tells me he threw it in the trash. Filing that VPO was the hardest thing I ever did. It took me 5 times to finally complete it. I went to Palomar twice and the courthouse 3 times. I filed it on February 15th of 2022 and was unable to attend the hearing because of COVID. They weren't able to serve me, so I went to the courthouse on March 9th and filed an alias protective order. March 11th, 2022 was a normal day for me. As I stated before, I left work at 4 and headed to the fourth level of the parking garage. I had worked at Integris for 20 years and was familiar with the cars that parked on that level because it was for employees. I never thought that I would be in for the fight of my life. I was shot 8 times with a 45 caliber handgun at point blank range, 6 times in the abdomen and twice in the upper left thigh, nicking my femoral artery. Underwent a 7-hour surgery on Friday where they grafted a vein out of my right thigh to repair the artery that had been damaged in my left. They performed a fasciotomy on my lower left leg. That's where they cut down both sides of your leg to relieve the pressure because I had lost so much blood. I received 11 units of blood in total. That Monday, I had another surgery and went home on Tuesday. So began the legal process, and I was ill prepared for what was about to happen. It was about a month out when I found out that there were state and federal charges filed against him, and I was unsure why there were federal charges. The one thing I knew for sure was that they, the people prosecuting my case, had to know that I was more than a case. I was Steve's daughter, niece, cousin, and friend. How could you fight for me and tell my story without knowing me? I was informed that the federal charges took precedent over state charges. So I testified at the state preliminary hearing and then waited for the federal trial to begin. The state charges were for the actual shooting itself, and the federal charges fell under Project Safe Neighborhoods, the Department of Justice initiative to reduce gun violence and enforce federal firearms laws. Operation 922 prioritizes prosecution of federal firearms violations connected to domestic violence. Shots fired targets cases of individuals who discharge firearms or when shots are fired as part of criminal activities such as domestic disputes. The federal system, referred to as the rockathon, was nothing I had ever seen before. It went very quickly. The trial started in January of 2023, and he was found guilty and received 2 life sentences plus 35 years in October of that year. Woo! Yay! The state trial had been set for March of 2024, and I was feeling confident, and they dismissed the state charges. Of course, he appealed, and to my surprise, he won the appeal. So, which meant we had to go back to trial on the technicality of kidnapping. Kidnapping charges at the state and federal level defer in the time frame in which you are held. So during the time of his appeal, federal kidnapping laws changed, and the charges were changed to attempted kidnapping. So the second trial began in July of 2025. And once again, he was found guilty and sentenced to 55 years in January of this year. It was also during this time that I found out that the statute of limitations had expired on the state charges. So he would not be punished for shooting. Once again, he stated that he would appeal, and once again, I'll take the stand until he gets stopped. I lost a younger cousin to domestic violence almost 17 years ago, and my aunt still has trouble dealing with her death. So I do this not just for me, but her. The legal system is not perfect, so it's up to us to take our power back, to be seen and heard. So much emphasis is placed on preserving the rights of the defendants that survivors are lost to. What about our rights? I hear stories of survivors struggling to find legal representation while hearing if the defendant can afford it, one will be provided for them. They make sure that their cross is not taken away. They are treated fairly. We deserve those same things, but we're left feeling embarrassed, broken, and constantly defending ourselves once again. The time is now to stop saying it needs to be fixed and start fixing, no matter the cost. We don't want to hear the cost because we've lost something more valuable than women. We ask that lawmakers meet with the survivors and listen to their concerns and stories of their survival against what was supposed to break them. Survivors, you are not alone. We have a bond, a club that no one wants to be a part of. Membership is late. There are quite a few domestic violence related bills this legislative year, but some are being met with opposition. Research. Find out who the authors and co-authors of these bills are. Meet with them. Ask questions. And then go to those legislators who oppose those bills and meet with them. They need to hear the stories, adding that human touch. It can be daunting walking into this building and using your voice, but you're not doing it just for yourself. There are other survivors that haven't found their voice yet, and those that are silenced. You have a village, and we're stronger together. My favorite Bible verse says, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of three strands is not easily broken. Thank you all for coming, supporting, cheering, and uplifting us.
And think lesser of my abuser. He ruled that the harm done to my rapist was greater than the harm done to me. I was legally forbidden from repeating the facts on my flyer, including my abuser's name. I was legally silenced by the state of Oklahoma for warning women about a serial predator. My First Amendment rights were stolen right before my eyes, while the monster in my story escalated, burning his initials on the skin of multiple women multiple times with a cattle brand. That experience taught me something about how our system works. Too often, protecting the good old boys club matters more than protecting survivors. But here's the part they didn't plan on: me fighting back, me not going away. I was dedicated to becoming a thorn in their asses, and after 441 days of clawing and fighting for my freedom of speech, I was finally able to get the judgment overturned. Predictably, he went on to destroy several more innocent lives and was even charged with a hate crime against women, the first of its kind to be heard in a U.S. courtroom. I was slated to testify against him. He was facing life in prison for what he did to his fifth wife, but he took a plea deal and was only forced to serve 13 months. 13 months. After brutally beating over a dozen women over a span of 3 decades, he still walks free. Over the years, he did everything to stop me from telling my story. He came after my kid. He came after my career. He even plotted to kill me at the Tulsa State Fair. Sharing my story is the only justice I will ever receive. So in the fall of last year, I published my memoir, Wildfire, everywhere books are sold or listened to. It exposes my abuser and the judge that silenced me, because I'm still spreading my truth like wildfire. I'm forever reminding them that silencing me was their most epic mistake. I also make the book available completely free for survivors who cannot afford it on my website, spreadthewildfire.com. I refuse to lock my truth behind a price tag. For 441 days, I was legally forbidden from saying his name. They did everything to destroy this flyer, but in suing me, it only made it public record. So I had it blown up just for you guys today. And it's on my shirt. Ask me about my flyer. But anyway, I got it blown up just for you guys today. It's now public record, thanks to the lawsuit. A judge deemed this flyer more dangerous than the man that was on it. Since publishing my book, I have heard from survivors from all over parts of Oklahoma and from around the world. Women quietly planning their escape. Women rebuilding their lives after leaving. Advocates speaking up so the next woman doesn't have to go through the same thing. I can hardly keep up with all the brave stories I get from survivors, which tells me we have an epidemic on our hands. Our laws should protect us. That's why we're here today. Oklahoma needs stronger protections for survivors. We need systems that recognize patterns of abuse and hold repeat offenders accountable. Survivors should not have to risk retaliation just to protect each other. The system should stand with them, not silence them. I fought a predator, a judge, lazy police officers, and a complete systemic failure to stand today and say these words. James Lumen II is a serial abuser, and I will yell it from the rooftops until he's famous. May my truth forever spread like wildfire. Thank you.
I was questioning everything I was raised to believe. And honestly, That first year, there was a lot of nights I went to bed praying I wouldn't wake up. It was hard. I didn't know how I was going to get through it. Thank goodness for a good support team, therapy. I'm here today. The more I educated myself about domestic violence, the statistics in Oklahoma, and getting past the shame and blame game of the trauma, I'm pissed. And please, let me state, although most of this event has been about women and women speakers here, it's not just women in Oklahoma that are being abused. Men are as well. 40% of our men in Oklahoma report abuse in their lifetime. Statistically, their abuse is more verbal, emotional, and financial versus the physical for women. However, nonetheless, it's traumatic and life-changing. So I'm asking every man and woman in Oklahoma to step up, speak up, and make your voices heard, and that we are tired of how Oklahoma is failing us. I encourage each and every one of you to reach out to your representatives, your congressmen, your senators, and tell them that you support these new House bills that are being presented. Advocate for the people in your life that you love in order to make the needed changes. I want to thank everyone for coming, to listening to us, and supporting us. Myself, along with the other speakers, will be here if anybody would like to discuss anything. Thank you so much.